African Americans can't find a job. Black unemployment is more than double the white rate. The typical black family has 60% as much income as a white family in 1968, but only 58% as much in 2002. Black infants are almost 2.5 times as likely as white infants to die before age 1. Worse than at the time of the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Jared? Why don't you...
Well, I mean, these are the things that Obama's election are meant to speak against, that they are to deny, or they are to, worse than deny, suggest that if they are in fact true, if people even hear of these statistics, which is not a given, they will couch it in the context of black inferiority. So I keep going back to what Du Bois said at the beginning of his book, Black Reconstruction. Read this either accepting black people as equal to any other group of humanity, recognizing that the conditions that they find themselves in is structural and the result of the system, or dismiss this book and everything else that I'm going to offer as useless because black people are naturally inferior. And again, so when I said at the beginning that I think Obama's election is meant to offer him up as the exception that proves the rule of black inferiority, this is what I'm talking about. Because even in his recent discussions of his statements in Cairo, where he spoke against, he said that the use of violence has had nothing positive, it had no positive impact on the movements of the people in this country.
I remember that, and I was absolutely stunned.
It denies the kind of history, not to suggest that violence is whatever about violence, but it denies the kinds of history that leads people into struggle against the conditions that you just read about, and it denies the existence of the people who are still held as political prisoners, fighting against these conditions that have again worsened since Dr. King, that links these political prisoners and the condition of black people almost accidentally in an appropriate way to the relationship this country has to Iran, North Korea, Palestinians, and others. That what should be understood is that black America does have the relationship to this country that this country has to the countries I just named and to the people that I just named. And we have to understand that Obama's election is not only misguiding and destroying internal black politics, but it's also denying the important history that connects our struggle to those of people around the world, which is again what one point was at the beginning about Obama's election being in fact an international one and having almost nothing to do with domestic American politics. So all of this is, I'm saying, is denies the history of Malcolm X, of Assata Shakur, of Mutulu Shakur, who is still in prison, of even David Gilbert and many others who are still in prison for taking certain actions that were meant to strike at the heart of the structural inequality that you and Glen have just described. And I think that this is causing greater, continuing to cause problems, because Glen is correct, that if, to the extent that black American politics are confused, so too will radical and progressive politics in general be in this country.
Marion, a rising tide lifts all boats, but if those are the statistics, then some boats have been left behind.
Well, we used to be, black Americans historically were a rural agricultural population until the early 20th century. And at this point, within 10 years, there may not be any more black farmers in the United States. We are losing the land that we have had since slavery ended, and we've never gotten the amount of land that we actually are owed. So, and
40 acres and a mule.
40 acres and a mule.
Glen, we are about to take our break, but can you tell us very quickly what your opinion is of this? The fact that people don't even know that we have these kinds of living conditions and these kinds of statistics. In fact, we've got to go to our break now, and so I want you to put a pin in your thoughts, and when we come back after the news break, we'll begin with you, Glen. Welcome back. This is American Dream, and I'm your host, Cynthia McKinney. Today our topic is U.S. racism in the age of Obama. And joining us, we have Marion Douglas Angaro, an international human rights consultant, Dr. Jared Ball, a professor at Morgan State University. On the phone, Glen Ford, co-editor of blackagendareport.com, and also Diedrich Muhammad, who is the author of the United for a Fair Economy reports that we've been referring to. Glen, I promised you the opportunity to go first on those statistics that no one knows anything about.
When we have this discussion, and especially among black folks, we're always talking about Obama as the black president. And there's little discussion about whose president he actually is based upon his policies. This is the banker's president. Under Obama, mainly under Obama, some $12.8 trillion has been either given or lent or committed or otherwise directed to financial institutions. $12.8 trillion is 90% of the total gross domestic product of the United States in 2008. 90% of all the economic activity of the United States. That's been directed towards the banks. It's unprecedented in history. It's mind-boggling. But here is the president who directs these vast, almost unimaginable sums of money to his friends in the banking class, but tells the BET's reporter that he's not about to do anything about black unemployment. Well, why do we continue to call him the black president? Call him by his name. He's the banker's president.
Thank you so much, Glen. This is a very good place for us to continue with our United for a Fair Economy 2004 report. It goes on to say that progress has been so slow that it would take centuries for African Americans to reach parity with white Americans. 581 years to close the per capita income gap. A black college graduate would earn $500,000 less. 150 years to close the poverty gap. 1,664 years to close the home ownership gap. 1 out of 3 African American males born today will be imprisoned during their lifetimes. But now, politics is supposed to solve these problems. Politics is supposed to deal with these issues. Why is it, what is it that's going on with the black body politic? Jared?
Oh, well, I mean, I think a number of different things. Suffering under the weight of all those conditions, number one, to begin with, I would argue that it also is a result of us living in the greatest degree of the most pervasive and the most pervasive media environment controlled by the fewest amount of people in world history is what we are subsumed within.
Seeing the kind of people who have access to the media.
That's right. So whether it's pundits on political television, whether it's popular culture, and particularly with hip-hop, all of these forms are carefully constructed to remove the substance and potential threatening power and resulting power that might come from that. So we have a community that is under a constant assault. So when Naomi Klein talks about her popular book, The Shock Doctrine, we have to understand that black America has been under a permanent shock doctrine. It has never ended and continues to increase and worsen to this day.
Diedrich, you wrote those words. You drew those conclusions. What is it with the black body politic? Are we able to deal with the facts that you have discovered in your research?
Well, clearly the black politic hasn't been wanting to deal with those stats, and I want to highlight too. We even updated that report in 2008, a report called 40 Years Later: The Unrealized American Dream. And the fascinating thing about these numbers is that these numbers were during the good economic times. These numbers were before the worst, recession in decades, and so.